Hello beadlings, welcome back. For today's tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a multi-layered rotator cuff. So this is a rotator cuff that has more than one layer that rotates on it. This one is I think, quadruple rotator. So this purple layer rotates, and then this blue layer rotates separately from the purple layer. Come on. There we go. And then the pink layer rotates separately from the blue and purple layers. So 1, 2, 3, 4 layers on this rotator. I will say also, I did not make this. This was a gift. It just happened to be an easy example that I had up in my office to show you with, but we will be making our own separate multi-layer rotator cuff for this tutorial. This is just to show you what we're going to be doing. I will, of course, do my absolute best to teach this for even the beginnerest beginner, but it is, as you can see, a bit more of a complicated project. So if you have not made a rotator cuff before, if you are not familiar with X-base stitch, I highly recommend that you go check out some of my earlier tutorials, which will be up in the little corner here, which kind of teach these basic sort of building blocks. And then come on back here where I will show you how to build out your rotator into a thing of glory and majesty that brave men fall to their knees, women weep, etc., etc. You know the drill. Final note before we get started, I do have a Patreon if you would like to support the channel. If you like what I'm doing, toss me a couple bucks a month or more if you happen to be a rich person. Hello, rich people. Patreon is linked down below, and let's get to the tutorial. So before we get into the actual list of materials you're going to need, I want to kind of show you what we're making. So what we have is a big base. This is an 8X tall base, and you can see they actually did 2 X's worth of bumpers on this cuff. Then the first rotator is 2 X's tall. It's actually 2.5 X's tall, it looks like. They did something funky with this. I'm interested in it. But you can see, so the exposed area on the base is 1, 2, 3, 4 X's. And then they made this, I think this is actually technically 3 X's. They just did it in a real funky way. 3 X's tall fits on the 4X open space because you want a little bit of room on the sides, either way, for it to rotate. And then this one is a 2X that fits onto the 3X, which is also, that's why this blue one doesn't rotate as well, is because it's fit a little too snug when you put them together, which I'll do in just a second. And then this one is not even an X base at all, actually. It looks like it is multi-stitch, and this is just 3 beads tall. So the 3 bead tall multi-stitch goes on the 2X, which goes on the 3X, which goes on the 4X, like Matryoshka dolls. I don't think I pronounced that correctly, but the little, the little dolls that all sit inside of each other. It's like that, but with candy. All of which is to say, you're going to need a lot of beads for an 8X base plus bumpers, and then however many spinners you want to do, however big you want to do them. For someone who hates math, my hobby sure involves a lot of math. Moment of silence. Anyway, so we're going to put this back together, and it is truly as easy as just plopping them right on top of each other. And this is also one of the reasons why I like using cloth covered stretch cord instead of the clear stuff, because it does not snap quite as easily when you have to wrangle the cuffs like this. Okay, so now we got this middle spinner all put back together. Let's put it on this guy and literally just shove it in there. Ta-da! This also answers the question people ask of how do you get the spinner on there? Inelegantly. So how big do we make the base anyway? Well, depending on how many layers you want to add to the outside of the rotator, you're going to make your base bigger or smaller. So when you're doing a rotator cuff, and I cover this in my other rotator cuff video, but when you're doing a rotator cuff, you're going to want to leave at least 1 X at the top and 1 X at the bottom. And I actually like to leave 1.5 X's. So 3 X's total bigger than the center rotator. For example, if I want a center rotator that is 2 X's tall, right, and I just want to do one rotator that's 2 X's tall, the base is going to have to be at least 5 X's. So that leaves 1.5 X's on either end, and then 2 X's in the middle for the spinner. In this case, we're doing multiple spinners, right? So if I want the smallest spinner to be 1X, the spinner right above that is going to have to be, if I want to leave room for it to rotate, let's say 2 X's, probably 2.5, which is what they did on this, right? And then if we say that the smallest spinner, middle spinner, if we say that the middle spinner is 2 or 2.5 X's, then the base that it sits on is going to need to be 5.5 or 6 X's. So in this particular case, I'm going to do a 6X base, and then I might only do 2 spinners just so I can show you how to do it instead of going crazy with like 4 or 5. Supplies. Okay, so for the base, you're going to need at least 1,000 beads. I'm making a 6X base, which is what takes about 1,000 beads. If you're making your base longer or taller than 6 X's, then you're going to need more beads than that. And then obviously you're going to need beads for the second layer, the third layer, the fourth layer, however many layers you are doing, you're going to need beads for that. Right now I have all the greens pulled because that is going to be the color of my base. You're also going to need cloth covered stretch cord. I use 1.2 millimeter cloth covered stretch cord for this. You can use 1 millimeter cloth covered stretch cord, although your work might be a little bit floppier, it doesn't stand up as well. And for something like this where you want the base to be pretty stiff, I highly recommend using 1.2 millimeter cloth covered stretch cord. Kandi needle. This is a plastic yarn needle. It is 2.75 inches, I believe. You can get them, both of these, on Amazon. There's lists linked in my down below thing. Scissors, of course. And then because I am going to be doing a dinosaur themed cuff, kind of Land Before Time, Lost Lands, you get the idea, I've got some specialty beads for decorating the outside. And that brings me to today's sponsor, Basehead Beads. They make the cutest beads and charms, and they're always coming out with new designs. I've been working with them for a few years now, and I can attest that this tiny team is in it for the love of the game. Tony, the owner, started out as a candy kid before moving on to designing his own beads. With over 300 designs to choose from, Basehead Beads has something for everyone. They actually just dropped their own letter beads, and I have them here so you can see them. They are so cute, and they are easy to work with, which I love. Go check them out and use code MOODCANDY10 at checkout to save 10% on your order. Every time you use my code, I get a commission, which helps me to keep making these tutorials. Thanks so much for watching, and now back to the video. First thing you're going to do, you're going to make a 6X base. Right now I'm sitting at 2 X's. I just want to show you something, which is that this is kind of the only part that is going to be very easily visible when it has all of the stuff on it, and even this is going to have a bumper built on top of it, but you'll still be able to see these beads. So I wanted to do kind of a cute little green pattern. I'm going to make the center of the base all this dark green clear color because I have a ton of these beads. But once I get to basically the end and I'm building the last X, I want to make sure that I mirror this on the other side. So I'm going to do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to do 4.5 X's, and then I'm going to start bringing these colored beads back in the opposite order that I put them on this side. I will show you when I get there, but this is something worth noting, worth remembering. When you're building a base, you gotta mirror what you did on the first part when you get to the end. Okay, so here's where we're at on the base. We've got, remember, making a 6X, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and half of the 5th X done. If we look at the beginning, right, we've got the first X is all these different colors, and then this connector bead is also a different color. So if I want to exactly mirror what I did up at the top, at the bottom, now is when I'm going to change up what I'm doing. And instead of doing all 3 of this dark green translucent, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, just like that, so that this bead matches. And you can see when I put it on there, it is directly vertical, matching up like that. So I'm going to do this whole round as the dark green, and then the center bead as a different dark green, and then the next round I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then the final round I'll do 1, 2, 3, and then the last round I'll do these guys, and that'll mirror it. So I've got a base where the top matches the bottom. Okay, so we're here and we are mirroring the bottom. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, just like that, into the next bead over. And we are now starting on the 6th row of X's. So we are almost done with the base. So, and again, you can see mirror image. Ta-da! And now we're on the last row, which again, we are mirroring just like that. And again, you can see it should vertically match, boop, exactly with the other side. So that's what that looks like when it's done. And then we just have the last layer of 2 beads in between each point. And then we have finished the first part of the base. And here we are. So this is what your base is going to be looking like. If you did more than 6 X's, your base will be longer. If you did 6 X's, it'll be something like this. So now we're going to add the bumpers. I'm just going to do simple bumpers for this. If you want to do the special flat bumpers, you can go to my video here where I teach you how to do that. They do take forever, so I don't want to do them for this video. But I'm just going to do normal bumpers the way that you would do on any kind of 3D X base, which means I'm going to add 5 beads in between these 2 beads. I'm going to call these contact beads because your string goes through them more than once. 5 beads in between each contact bead all the way around, and then we will connect them down to the bottom for this type of bumper. So 5 beads coming out of a contact bead. We're going to go into the next contact bead over. Boop. And when we pull it tight, we'll get a little spike just like that. Now we are going to connect the spikes to the bottom here on the next round, and you do want to remember, depending on how many spinners you're going to put in the middle and how big they're going to be, like how far out they go, you want to make sure that your bumpers on either end are like big enough to stop it from sliding off one way or the other. And you also want to make sure that you don't have anything dangling from your bumpers that could run into the spinner and make it not spin so well. So this is what it'll look like when you're done. It's a bunch of little pointy things. And you may note this could act as a bumper. If you wanted to make a rotator cuff with a giant center, you could just do a bumper that is 1 round of these spikies on either end. I will just warn you, they do flop up pretty easily. So it is not the most stable, and there is the chance of your spinner just going flying off the end, which is why we are now going to add a little bit more to this bumper. So we are here coming out of the original contact bead. We're going to run our string up the arm of this point and come out the center bead. So just like that. And now we are in position to add the legs and make these go down a bit. They'll still be 3D, but they won't be sticking out like this. So I am just going to match it to what's on the base. I'm going to do 1, 2, these 2 colors, and then I'm going to go into this contact bead here that is directly vertically below the contact beads that we used on the previous round. Boop, just like that. Just kidding, I don't like that. Hang on, that's better. I just changed up the colors. So we're gonna do 1, 2, and into the center point. And then we're gonna do 1, 2, and into the next contact bead. Just like that. All the way around until we have a row of these 3D X's sticking out. And here's what that looks like when that's done. You've got your first bumper. Now, you can continue to decorate this. You could do another round or another layer of beads in between these contact beads. These new center beads are now contact beads. You could build it out further. You could extend it down and make a larger bumper. There's a lot of options that you have. It's very customizable. I'm going to leave that until the end because I'm making multiple rotators and I don't have like a solid plan yet of how exactly that's gonna go. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make kind of the most basic version of this, and then I will go back afterwards and add decorations and add fancy stuff and sort of build it out from there. It is, technically it's easier if you do all of the decorating in one go, because then you don't have to cut more string and attach more string and whatever. But because I can't picture things in my head and we are just sort of like on a little adventure here together, I'm going to save that for the end. Now, what I am going to do is I'm going to replicate this bumper, do the exact same thing on the other side. I don't quite have, I've got a bunch of string left, but I don't quite have enough to run it down and then start here. So I'm just going to tie it off, cut it, reattach, and build. If you need any assistance on how to tie off string or how to attach string or anything like that, I have a video for it right there. All right, so base is done. We've got a 6X base with 2 bumpers on it, which leaves 1, 2, 3, 4 X's free and open for a spinner. Now, I do want to leave half of an X on either side in order for the spinner to spin more freely. So I'm going to make a 3X for our first spinner. Now this cuff is 36 beads around. That's 12 segments or 12 X's around. In order for the spinner to spin, it needs to be a bit bigger than the base. So my rule on this is however many beads around on the base, say 36, you're going to add 3 sections. So one section is 1X. This is 12 sections. So the first spinner is going to be 15 sections around. 15 times 3 is 45. So the first spinner is going to be 45 beads around. And I'll show you when I make the first single for it, but you do want to double check it against your base and make sure that it is about the right size. So one moment. I'm going to show you an example. So this string has 36 beads on it, which is the same number of beads that we started with on the starting single for the base. And I'm going to wrap it, holding both ends so the beads don't slide. Gonna wrap it around the bottom so that you can see. It does not, the beads do not meet. There's a bunch of empty string there. So we got to add more beads. Like I said, I like to add 3 extra sections. So that's 1, 2, and 3. Okay. And now let's see how this holds up. If we, there we go. And they meet in the middle. You don't even have to stretch the string in order for them to meet. This is actually even a little bit loose. The bumpers will stop it. But if you want your spinner to be a little tighter, you can take one of these sections out and just add 2 extra sections. I like my spinners to be very loose. I like them to rotate very freely. So I'm gonna leave it like this. And this is, again, 45 beads around for the starting single on the first spinner. Okay, so we have this 3X spinner that is going to fit right there on our base. I like to make the spinners separately from the base. I think it's easier to do that and then just pop them on the base when we're done. I'm going to put this on to make sure it fits before I add the bumpers. There we go. And it does. It fits perfectly. Amazing. So now I'm going to make the bumpers, and I can either do 1, 2 full bumpers and have a very, very skinny little spot for the third spinner to go. Or I can do slightly thinner bumpers that are smaller than these and have a bigger middle spinner. So give me a second while I figure out what I'm gonna do. Okay, I have decided I'm gonna do thinner bumpers on this one so that I can have a fatter center spinner, which means we're just gonna do 5 beads in between each contact point so that we have a little row of spikes sticking out. And I might even do a little second row of spikes just to make it bigger, but we'll see. So we'll start with that first round, 5 beads. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just like that. I have kind of a vision of like mountains and trees and like Land Before Time, kind of Jurassic Park-y vibes. So this is going to be just like that. Some little trees around the edge of the property. Okay, so do this all the way around, come back here. So here's what that looks like with that first round done. And I'm going to put in a second layer of spikes just for a little bit of extra stability, because you can see these are pretty wiggly. But I don't want the full, like this full 3DX takes up a lot of space. I don't want that. So when I finish this round, I'm going to run my string just down to that center bead there. So just like that. And then I'm going to do another layer of spikes, just like I did this first layer. So basically we are now treating these beads, these center beads directly underneath the spikes, as another layer of contact beads. And so what that's going to look like is something like this. We'll do... Sorry, I'm considering color choices here for a second. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How does that look? I think that looks pretty good. Doop. Just like that. There we go. And so that's what that's going to look like from above, and it leaves a little bit more space than doing it this way. So again, you're using these center beads, half an X down. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and into the next one. Just like that. So here's what we're looking like after those 2 layers of spikes are done, and we are going to go to the bottom and repeat what we did on the top. And here is what we are looking like. You will notice the points are a little janky, and that is normal. Once you put it onto your base and then get the center on there, it will be a little less janky. So literally just slide it on like a sock. And we'll zoom out a little bit. There we go. So we can see we have the first rotator is on there and it rotates pretty well. Time to make the next one. And we are going to do, you can see here, we have 1X and a little bit on either side. So we're going to do a 1X rotator. If you have less room than this, you can, instead of doing X space, do multi-stitch or peyote stitch to make it even thinner, or chain stitch to make it even thinner. I'll throw some links to tutorials up here for those stitches. But again, I am showing you one way to do this, and I'm giving you the basics, but it is very, very, very customizable. Okay. Time for the next one. And just like we did for this rotator, we're going to have to size up. This spinner is 45 beads around. That is 13 sections. So we're going to add 3 more sections for 16 sections, which is, oh no, math. 16 times 3. Fuck. 24 plus 16 is 10. 80, I think? That doesn't make sense. Hang on. 54. The answer is 54 beads around. Might be able to do it with 51. So I'm going to make a single with 51 beads and see how that sits. And if it is not big enough, I'm going to do 54. All right, so starting single of 54 beads, wraps. There's a little bit of stretch, but it basically touches. I'm going to say we are good to go with 54 beads. Go team. So now I'm going to make this into a 1X cuff, or a 1X spinner rather. Okay, so something worth noting is I've misjudged a little bit of the sizing on this. So we've got the first half of the first X done, and unfortunately, when I compare it to the available space here, that is basically all the available space. So instead of doing a full 1X, I'm actually just going to add 2 beads in between each point and close off the cuff, close off the spinner rather, at that. So this is what we are looking like at the end there. You can see it is just half an X tall, and it's going to sit perfectly right in the middle there. Just little bit of wrangling. Make sure it is not twisted. It totally is, my bad. There we go. Okay, so, boop, hello. So we have the base, we have rotator number 1, and we have rotator number 2, which, there we go. So now we can decorate. Like I said at the beginning, you can totally add decoration as you go. Instead of waiting till the end, I waited till the end. So what I am going to do is contemplate this for a minute and pull out some other beads, and I'll be right back. Okay, like I said, dino cuff. And I'm going to be starting with these bumpers that are the bumpers on the base. I'm going to be adding some spaghetti beads to make them pointy, and little baby dinosaurs around the edge. And I think I'm going to grab some letter beads also, because as we all know, RAR means I love you in dinosaur. And as a note on this, I am switching to a slightly thinner cord. I used 1.2 millimeters for the whole base of the cuff, all of the structural stuff. I'm going to use 1 millimeter, not 1.2 millimeters, smaller difference, because spaghetti bead holes are smaller than regular bead holes, and they're very annoying to work with if your string is too thick. You can also use fishing line if you want to, or you can use the plastic clear stuff, Stretch Magic, whatever. I hate it. It does dry rot faster than the cloth covered stuff, but it is easier to use when you are doing like the outside decorative bits and you've got beads with smaller holes. So like sometimes I will switch over to the clear stuff when I have it on hand. I don't have it on hand right now, so I'm just using a thinner string. Oh, and I guess final note on the string, you want to make sure that you cut enough string for this. You don't want to have to add more, because the knots can be hidden inside of pony beads, but when you're using beads with smaller holes like spaghetti beads, or even like the mini dinosaur beads from Basehead Beads, these holes are smaller than pony bead holes, and so if you have a big knot in your string, tying more string on, that'll get stuck and it won't go smoothly through the hole. So just a note on that. So now we're going to tie on, and I literally just go here underneath the beads, pull up. I'm going to try and stay in focus as much as I can here. So here's what it looks like from above, here's what it looks like from the side, and cross over, under, granny knot, one more time, just kidding, it's going to be 2 more times, double knot, and then a 3rd time for a triple knot. You don't have to do it this way. Do whatever works for you that keeps your string securely fastened to the cuff, and then just cut off the excess bit there. And you will notice I tied it to the very base of the cuff, not directly onto the outer layer where we're going to be working, and that is purely for stability. I am tying on a needle out of habit not going to use the needle. The needle cannot go through spaghetti beads. Oh, but I am, okay. Sorry, my meds are wearing off, and so I'm a little spacey. I might just edit that out. Okay, so you're gonna take your needle, you're gonna run it through like that, and basically just get your string. Come on. Oh, is there a knot? Yeah, there was a knot that I was stuck on. Get your string coming out of where you want to start working from. So for me, that is going to be right here. I want to be coming out of one of the center beads because we are going to be building out that layer. There we go. And now I'm going to take this needle off because it's too fat to fit through the spaghetti beads. I'm going to actually be adding in some mini pony beads, essentially to control how the spaghetti beads sit. So I'll do a mini pony, a spaghetti bead, another mini pony, and you get a close-up view of how shaky my hands are when I have to do this with no needle. Then we get the R, and then we do again little bead, spaghetti bead. Come on, there we go. And little mini pony bead, there we go, so nice. Okay, coming out of this bead, we're gonna go into that bead, next one over, just like that. And you do want to pull super tight. The tension on this one is going to be really important because if you want them to stand out straight, it has to be very, very tight. I recommend getting like a clothespin or something to hold that tension there as you work. But that is how far out it goes, and that's what it looks like. Much better. Very excited about this. So I'm going to do a bit more and I'll be back. We've got our little lineup of dinos here. I like to lay out my beads before I actually put them on the cuff so that I can see like what order I want them to go in, especially if it's like different colors, different shapes, stuff like that. So here's our RAR, and then our first little dinos on there. It's so cute. I'm so excited. So I'm gonna finish this off, and again, it is just mini bead, spaghetti bead, mini bead, and then whatever central focal bead you want to put there. Letter bead, mini dinosaur, whatever. And then repeat, mini pony bead, spaghetti bead, mini pony bead, and then into the next contact bead over. If you want to keep building this out, and I don't, this is going to be as big as it is, but if you want to keep building this out, you want to remember whatever beads you put here become your contact beads for the next layer out. So you want to make sure that the hole is big enough to run the string through more than once. These technically work. You can see there's space here, but they would be mega annoying. Same with the letter beads. There is, you can see the space there. By the way, side note, love how big the holes in the letter beads are. But yeah, so like I said, I'm gonna finish this and I'll be back. So here we are at the end of that round, and I'm gonna repeat the exact same thing on the bottom, but it says RAR, and it has all the little baby dinos on it, like they're on a little Ferris wheel. Okay, actually, I do want to make a note here. So this RAWR, RAR, is obviously oriented up. The dino heads are all oriented up. When I build the bottom, I have an option. My option is, do I want up to remain this as the top of the cuff and have it say RAR and have the dinosaurs all be here facing the same way, so that way the cuff is very clearly oriented like that, or I can do it the opposite way and make it so that you can flip the cuff any way you want and it still has the same message, right? There's limitations to this. Obviously, you would have to mirror exactly what you do on the top on the bottom. The center needs to be like, can't be oriented just that way or just that way. Would need to be like center oriented basically. But worth noting, just sort of like another thing to keep in mind when you're designing your triple rotator or quadruple rotator or whatever rotator, is sort of keeping in mind, do you want this to be a cuff with only one orientation, or do you want it to be able to be flipped and still like be the same cuff basically. Okay, and here's where we are at. We've got those bumpers done, and you can see I reversed it. So no matter which way you are holding the cuff, it'll still say RAR. So that's all the decoration that I'm going to do on those top bumpers. And the middle cuff, you'll see, now there is some decoration that could happen between these little spikes here, but there's not like a whole lot of space for improvement, for messing around. So on your middle spinner, sorry, forgot the word, on your middle spinner, really the only thing you're going to see is the bumpers. Good to remember, good to know. Middle spinner, this is the fun one to decorate. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take dinosaurs and do like a little parade of dinosaurs situation, like, you know, like that kind of thing, which means I need to like lay them all out and do spacing calculations and figure out colors and stuff. So I'll be back. 1 week later. So when you add decoration to your cuff, you want to make sure that you're adding it in a way that is not going to stop it from spinning. And I've started adding some decorations just to show you what I mean. So we've got 3 layers here, right? Let me zoom out a little bit. Manual zoom here. There we go. So we've got 3 layers here, right? We've got the base, we've got this layer, which spins. It's a little hard to spin when it's not on an arm, but like the middle layer that spins, and then the very smallest layer that also spins, which is not spinning right now because I'm doing stuff to it. I've added little dino eggs and stuff along here, and you can see I've spaced it so that it doesn't bump into these, right? And there's enough room, these hang out a bit, so that when I add decorative beads here, when I add these dinosaurs, they're flat, right? And they're not going to run into the eggs. So for this center spinner, the smallest one, it's 18 segments long. So I'm doing a repeating pattern of dinosaurs across 6 segments. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. I'm going to leave this blank. And I've got my string, I've got my fishing line coming out of this contact bead here, and so I'm going to start this pattern over. And the holes in these beads are too small to use a needle, so I do have to just use my fingies. You can see where the hole is aligned, it's all along the bottom of the dinosaur. So what I'm going to do is, we're coming out of this bead, and I'm going to put it into this next bead over on the same level. Boop, there we go. Perfect. And when you pull it tight, he just sits right there. So repeating pattern. Next one is the Triceratops. And if you look at the whole alignment on this one, goes in at the bottom and comes out a little bit higher up, comes out at the snout. So it's a bit of a diagonal hole, which means we are coming out from a bottom contact bead. We're going to go into a top contact bead. You can see my middle spinner is a little harder to work with because it is only half an X tall, which means that the top and the bottom contact beads are not aligned. Like the bottom contact bead here is diagonal from the top contact bead here. So it's a little harder to work with, but we are doing our best. And there's the end of the string. Boop. So when you pull tight, you see it sits right there, and we go into this contact bead, which I'm going to pull out a little bit. There we go. And pull that tight. Come on. There we go. So you get the idea. I'm going to finish doing this spinner, and then I'm going to come back and do the bottom row of these eggs. Okay, so we've got all of our dinosaurs on here. Run the string back through so that it meets up with the short end, and then we are just going to tie off 1, 2, and if you want to, you can do a triple knot, put a little glue on the knot, and cut off the ends. Boop, just like that. So now we are going to go on to the eggs. So we're going to do the same thing. I've got my long piece of fishing line. Going to just pop it through one of these holes here and stick a clip on the other end to anchor it in place. And then I'm just going to mirror what I did above. So I've got 3 different colors of dino eggs in a repeating pattern. And I'm going to take my little dino eggs and go 1 small one and 1 big one. And just pop into the next spike over. Just like that. And then when we pull it tight, we've got our first little set of dino eggs on there. I could probably put another egg, but it would make it poke out a whole bunch, and I don't like how that looks. So I'm just doing 2 eggs instead of 3. And then I'm just going to repeat that all the way around till I get back to the beginning, and I'm going to tie off the same way that I tied off on the middle decorations. And here we go. We have our double rotator cuff done. So put it on my arm here. We've got the middle that rotates very nice, this center one. And then the very center one is a little harder to rotate. But if I hang on to the middle one, we can get it going. There you go. That is it for this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what I do here and you want to support me, go ahead and check out my Patreon. Link is down below, and you will see scrolling up on this screen right now the names of my current patrons who are all supporting me for some amount of money every month, and I love them very much for it because it means I get to buy Hubert the fancy fish food instead of having him eat out of the garbage can. So yeah, I don't know. Stay safe, protect each other, be good, and I'll see you in the next one. Blair.